How did Detroit, the largest and most populous city in the U.S. state of Michigan and the seat of Wayne County, become what it is today? Let's discover it. The city of Detroit was founded in July 24, 1701. During the 19th century, rich mansions displayed the wealth of industry and shipping magnates. The growth of shipping, shipbuilding, and manufacturing led to the rise of the city, which became an important port and transportation hub thanks to its strategic location in the Great Lakes. In 1896, Henry Ford decided to fabricate his first automobile in a rented workshop, and in 1903 he founded the Ford Motor Company. Because of Ford and other large automotive manufacturers like William C. Durant, founder of General Motors, and Walter Chrysler, Chrysler Automobile's creator, Detroit emerged as the world capital of automobile. The rise of the sector boosted the expansion of related services like garages, gas stations, and also manufacturers of parts and wheels. It is worth mentioning labor activism, as industrial workers organized themselves and started several strikes to gain better working conditions. Detroit became the fourth largest city in the nation in a short time in 1920. The industrial city attracted new workers, so the city experienced demographic changes in the framework of the Great Migration, which consisted in the migration of thousands of Southern people from rural areas and prompted racial conflicts and discrimination. During World War II, Detroit had an important function in providing the Allied powers with auto goods, and as a consequence, jobs increased speedily. The city not only has stood out as an economic center, but also as a major center of creation and performance of different musical genres: blues, jazz, gospel, classical. The African American population was the main contributor to the musical legacy of Detroit, and the Black Bottom neighborhoods attracted national blues artists, jazz singers, and big bands. During the post-war, the oligopoly in the sector was very consolidated. The Big Three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, were the powerful that could easily beat competitors. In the 1950s, Detroit City reaches its peak population with about 1.85 million inhabitants, becoming the fifth largest city in the nation. Because of the implementation of good roads, highway systems, and the demand of new housing, industries and people started to move from the center urban areas to the suburbs. The decentralization process put many jobs out of the reach of the poorest workers of the urban center, since funds were not only designated to improve the public transportation. This resulted in racial segregation, with a mainly African American inner city surrounded by the suburbs, inhabited by whites. In 1950s, many production plants were relocated to the south of the states, Canada and Mexico. This resulted in negative effects for the local commerce. The oil crisis from 1973 and 1979 affected greatly the U.S. automotive sector because, as the fuel price grew, consumers preferred the cars that consumed the least, produced by non-Americans. Imports were increasingly, particularly from Italian, Japanese, and German makers, and the U.S. auto manufacturers saw their sales and market share fall. Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford struggled financially and decided to relocate more of their production to other states in the U.S. with lower costs and to poorer countries. Lots of workers were fired, and factories in the city closed, causing a great impact on the economy of the city. Despite the efforts to renovate the city, many hotels and big stores closed, leading to large empty office buildings. The city was about to enter an urban decay. Detroit faced high unemployment and saw a reduced tax base. Inhabitants started to leave the area, and since 1950 census, population decreased year by year. The racial composition was changing too, with an increasing number of African American population. As said before, there were more and more abandoned buildings and also entire neighborhoods, resulting slowly to desolate cityscapes. Also, the crime increased a lot, and even became one of the highest in the USA. Today, Detroit's population is about 680,000 inhabitants, and therefore it is not among the nation's 20 most populous cities. Comparing it to the 1950, it represents a loss of above 60% of the population. Notably, 39 of its inhabitants live in poverty, and 84 are Afro-American. Detroit's authorities have tried to boost downtown development with several measures, like the rehabilitation of historical and landmark buildings as the Michigan Central Station and the construction of modern business centers, Renaissance Center, new public spaces and facilities. However, there are still thousands of empty buildings, and the contrast between different parts of the city is shocking. There are parts with a few population so dispersed that it is difficult that municipal services arrive to everyone. It has been considered to demolish abandoned constructions and to incite people to move to the most populated areas. Regarding economy, there are many taxes and fees uncollected, and the city was declared bankrupt in 2013, the largest municipal bankruptcy case in the history of the U.S. From 2010, there have been initiatives by locals to bring back life and welfare to Detroit, renovating the neighborhoods in order to make them attractive. Some examples are the urban gardening movements, aiming to cultivate and distribute food within the city, and the Motor City Blight Busters. This altruistic organization is responsible for cleaning and making urban areas livable and nice. We can define it as a new culture of cooperation in the city. To conclude, Detroit's case will be related with two important theories. The first is Immanuel Wallerstein's, who created a theory which stresses that the world system is a basic unit of social analysis regarding division of labor and divides the world in three groups. The core countries, who provide high-profit consumption goods, periphery countries that supply the richer ones with labor and raw materials, and the semi-periphery ones that are in the middle in a transient state. This way, the core companies take profit of cheap labor, tax regulation, and natural resources moving to the periphery, a phenomenon known as industrial relocation. This can lead to the decline of industrial locations, as happened with Detroit. Peter D. Taylor also approached the world system dividing it in different areas, this time with using a vertical division in scales. He distinguished between local experiences, like the decline of Detroit, nation-state economy as a phenomenon of relocation of American companies, and the world economy reality, represented with the globalization of the economy that entailed competitiveness between international companies.